Welcome back to Realistic Progression 1, an incurable space program, and it's time to look at, well, our science. You'll see we've gone up to 24. The way we've done that is by unlocking, as it loads, this node all the way down here. We have this Geiger Molar counter, and the advantage of this one, and I've just put it on the test rocket that we've already built because it's identical to the other flights. I just didn't want to show those on camera. The advantage of this one is it's both biome specific and height specific. So that means you can get 4.5 science for the shores, for water, and for forest. All three of those. And you can get 3 for flying high in all 3 of those as well. That's 9 for one, 13.5 for the other. Is it 13.5? Yeah, 13.5. So obviously you can see we're up towards 25 now. 24.9. So we can take a few more things and get some more points. So we have to go through this one. We just have to do it. So let's just pay the toll. And we're down to 14.9. And we really probably want these as well. Yeah, I guess we should. That would leave us with 7.9. I don't think that's enough to spend on anything else. The main thing I'm just looking for is way to unlock points fairly cheaply here. There we go. Early avionics and probes. So we're definitely going to want that one. And we'll take this one as well. Okay, so that's 3 points. Let's pop out for a second. You'll see around 35,000 credits. And we were at 50, and then I spent... we were at 30-odd thousand last episode, but this is actually after a bunch of other stuff's happened. I built some more testing rockets, which is what has depleted the money, but to get some money to do that, I went into mission control and just took the, not the active, archives. There's a mission in here for first suborbital trajectory and return. And we were already doing that last episode. We were already using the testing rockets, sending them up, bringing them back down again with science on board. So that's a free, what is that, 28,000? So yeah, pretty good. Now we've got a choice. And here's the problem. Let's pop into the VAB for a second. Because the next big contract is your first satellite. Let's just have a look in here. See this? You get an advance 504,000 credits, huge amounts, and another 180,000 on completion. You get pretty much, you know, a year, 2 years. But here's the problem. You have to build the orbital rocket inside 2 years. So if we'll have a look at our technology here, you can see a lot of these nodes are 2 years and more away. That's a bit early material science, satellite era material science, and the orbital rocketry. That orbital rocketry one is one of the most important nodes. If you have a look in here and have a look at this, it's this node. Sorry, not that one, that one. You see there's a lot of engines in here, and this is your sort of easy route to orbit, or easier route to orbit. You'll see there's a lot of things like the LR-79, the AJ-10's probably in here somewhere. AJ-10, early, yep. There's the tiny little LR-101s, and some upgrades for RD-103M, so that's even more high performance version of the RD-103. Now, we could do that mission, and then we'd have a problem because our technology wouldn't unlock in time. So I think the next few points we're going to do, upgrades, we'll take a look at what happens if we spend into R&D. We've got 3 points available. So what's our current technology? So let's look at this. 744.21 is it currently. So let's add 1 into R&D. And what is it now? 722. So that saves us 20 days per upgrade. And I'm not sure if this rate of upgrades is the same. So this adds 0.2 and 0.25. Okay. So we spent them all in there. And now it's down to 663. That's still quite high. It's still going to take us quite a bit of time to actually get through them. So If you take that mission, just be aware that you have to get to orbit inside 2 years, or you lose 500,000 credits, which you may have already spent. That wouldn't be good. I had a look at see if we could build orbital rocketry without this technology. So I built a few prototypes. One of the nodes we don't have is the Baby Sergeant nodes, and they are really quite good solid rocket motors. The only ones we have at the moment are our Tiny Tims kick motors, and the other one I can never remember the name of. You'll see it shortly. It's over here on the left once the interface loads. It just takes a fair amount of time to load just because of a realism overhaul more than anything else. So engines. So the Aerojet, that's it, X310C10. Yeah, really easy name to remember, as you can see. So we've only got both of these. This was just my tester, by the way, and so you'll see it's identical. Let me just make sure that's saved, but in here I've just taken off the biosamples and added the Geiger Molar tube, or the Geiger Molar counter, to that. So that seems to work just fine, and let's just don't save that. So I had a look at some, let's pop down. So some prototypes. Could we build a Baby Sergeant equivalent, which is the Juno 1 mission, without the Baby Sergeant rocket motors? Turns out not very well. Let's just, is this the original prototype? Yeah, so I just built this in here. So 1, 3, 11, using these Aerojets. But as you can see over here on the Delta V stats, only around 5k in the atmosphere, or 5.7 in vacuum. Not high enough. We need above 9, really, 9.4, something like that. And then down here, it doesn't really much matter what's down here, so we can just get rid of that for a second and then have a look at what else we can do. So I also looked at building a stretch version of our rocket underneath the new payload. Again, this one instead, so one of these Aerojets, then a stage that is an Aero B, then 11 of these, and then this. So as you can see, there's 4 stages there. Total is now higher, 6.3 in the atmosphere, 7.3. So if we wanted a quite an expensive, in fact, how much would it be once we tool things? We'd save, it's mainly the tank, isn't it? So we'd save 800 from the tank and 500 from the decoupler and 200. So it'd still be 2.2, which is still quite expensive. But yeah, if we wanted a really expensive sounding rocket for altitude, we could probably do it with this. So 6.3, 7.254. Still short. So I thought, well, could we just take this concept further? Could we add more and more stuff onto it? It gets less and less efficient, of course, when you do this. So you start thinking about putting in side boosters. Okay, so now we have a central A4 with an Aero B stage, followed by 3, followed by 1, just because it got ridiculous. And the reason why it doesn't have an 11 stage is because if you have a look at the sea level thrust there, it's 1.14, so this thing would barely take off. And this is with 2 side boosters, both running RD103s. And of course, horrendously expensive. It would get a lot cheaper if I tooled it, but again, even once I fitted the payload bay on here and everything else, still is nowhere near as good. It still only gets to 6.2 compared to 7k of the last one, so we can throw that one out of the bin as well. And finally, this is up to 9,400 now. And again, 3 RD103 phases. This one I hadn't finished off because it was still too, it wouldn't even take off unless I fired all the engines at the same time. If I fired them all, then I could take off. But again, only 6k. Just because you can imagine, an insane top set of stages still doesn't work. These boosters are just not good enough for this kind of thing, no matter how I get them up there. And this will have other problems as well, like for example, it's too heavy. Yeah, it's 67 tons. So yeah, we can't really do any of those approaches. Now, what we could do is we could try with this NAA 75-110 A series, which again is a wonderfully named thing, but it is part of the ICBM sort of Redstone short-range ballistic missile, not ICBM. So it's part of the Redstone, and this is where you normally have 3 engines underneath it, and they get dropped off when the Juno 1 mission, etc. Yes, but we don't have any of the engines, the side engines, I don't think. So, unless these are built in, we'd have to buy it to figure out those. 2 different models, same engine. Everything else I've pretty much excluded, so the only way to go is either try and build something with these, and if you have a look at the maximum thrust, this is 395 versus what's the RD103? 395 versus 490 we can already get in terms of thrust. And efficiency, this is 220 to 248 on the RD103, and this is very similar engine ISPs. So I don't think we'll be able to do anything with that we couldn't already do with the RD103s. So we sort of get to a bit of a point here. We got to decide. We can either just accelerate our time and move forward till our scientists are finished, or we can try and take that mission, and then what we'll have to do in order to make it work, you've got to actually go into upgrades, and you can buy points with 30,000 funds. So you get 1 point for each of those. So if 1 point brings it down by 20 days or so, thereabouts, we're going to need quite a few points of that 500,000 to actually get us this technology unlocked anytime soon. So we've got to go through each of these, remember. So 133 plus 663 plus 464. So I think what I'm probably going to do is take us forward until we've got some more of those nodes. So we don't have to take the gamble. We'll be able to assemble something on the pad. So I'll see you once I've done that. And let's try and build something that will go, or is capable of going to orbit. Whether I can fly it there, that's something else. Alright, we're now in September 1957, and you'll see my money's gone down a little bit, and that's well, by half. That's because of maintenance, so you can't just fast forward without cost. That is something to bear in mind in the new version of Realistic Progression. However, this has got us 2 nodes. It's got us the material science nodes, so both of these. And next up is this orbital, not that one. No, we've got this one as well. Orbital rocketry. Good. So we can now spend the last of our dwindling funds on some sort of orbital rocket. So in early material science, we can spend on that, but I'm not sure if default tanks are used anymore. They used to be used, but now it's more like Tank 1 or Tank 2 are your options. So I'm going to spend on that anyway. Yeah, see the Tank 2. I think that's just a larger tank. I don't think it's any different than that. So into satellite era material science. And now we get lots of choices in here. We're not going to worry too much about these other than just purchasing these other tanks types. Service bays, it's a bit expensive for us at the moment, but I'm not going to choose that just yet, but that'll nicely encapsulate all those stuff that we normally just strap onto the sides of the avionics, like science experiments, into a little bay. The radial decoupler will be good for larger rockets, and of course we've got the Atlas fairing decoupler, as well as the various tanks that aren't procedural tanks, so the specific ones for those historic missions. And then lots of non-RP0 parts. But here's the node that we all want. So we're going to want that AJ10 early. And I'm thinking we're going to have to take that mission now, the one that gives us 500,000, because we need to spend on some of these and start researching them. So we want the AJ10. We want one of the LR series. I'm not sure which one I'm going to go for just yet, but we'll have a look at those. And we can take those nodes easily, and we're definitely going to go for the RD103M. That will be very useful, not from in here because this price is wrong, obviously, but from the main VIB. So let's go ahead and do that, shall we? Let's get that huge amount of money and one heck of a deadline. First artificial satellite, 504,000 credits. Oh, there it is. And we've got a deadline to meet. Where are you now? First artificial satellite. Its deadline is in 730 days. Okay. Let's go and purchase some stuff, shall we? Let's go into the VAB and get it from there. It'll be easier to see. Alright, so here we are in the VAB. I've just purchased the AJ10, which is the most important purchase as far as I'm concerned. And let's just reload some of those earlier prototypes. So which one was the ridiculous one? That one's not too ridiculous. Let's load the prototype 2. Okay, so this was the one where it was 6.3 or 7.254. So first of all, let's take off these. They're useful, but not quite so useful just yet. And then let's take off this. And this. And then look at this. This is the Aero B stage that is going to give us 2,289 in vacuum, if we were in vacuum. Okay, so let's get rid of this for a second. We were up at 7.3, weren't we, totally in vacuum, but it was 6 point something. So let's get rid of this. And let's just go to my sub-assemblies. And then look at the AJ10 early upper stage. So we can pop this back in. And I've got to separate this staging out a little bit just to sort this out temporarily. There we go. So we get 1 minute 55, and this is 2,864. Okay. And then we can put the rest of this back, just temporarily. Can I have that without the shroud? No, I'll figure that out in a second. In fact, with the AJ10, we can get rid of you. We're going to have to separate these things a little bit differently. So let's not worry about it. So 7494, and that's before I put these on. So let's just grab you and bring these up to 11. Okay, normally I wouldn't put them on this particular stage, but let's just put them on here just to temporarily look at it. And let's sort the staging out. So, back out we go. So, bottom rocket. No, they're not going to go there. So let's move those up for a second, and we're going to put them, just temporarily put them there. Okay, so bottom rocket, then the struts holding us to the ground, then the separation, and then we probably want these, I would guess, and then we'll lose them on the next phase as soon as we fire that. Get rid of this. Okay, so we're at 7,400, and what were we before we put those on? 7494. Okay, let's get rid of those. I told you the baby sergeants were much better. Yeah, so we have an upper stage that looks a lot more reasonable. 6612. And we still haven't got something that can hit orbit, but obviously that's going to be a simpler rocket to get into space. And can I research and develop this? I guess I can't. No. Okay, fine. So what else can we do? Well, without this, you can, and I don't recommend it, but you can duplicate these. And yeah, that's why I don't recommend it. If we didn't have the rest of this on, in fact, hang on, it's not staged correctly yet. Let's just put this in. You still gain, but just not by as much. We need to put a decoupler on there for a second. Let's just grab a decoupler. You gonna give me one? Okay, where's the decoupler for the first one? There we go. No, that's still not set correctly because I've not put any fuel in. What does this take? UDMH? Okay, so you can do this kind of thing where you can stack these upper stages, at least very early. You normally don't want to do it because if you have a look at how much delta V the first lot of the AJ10s give us, it's only 1,000 versus 2,500 of the second one, so there's massive losses, and of course its thrust to weight ratio is lower than 1, so it's not going to be terribly good at staying up there. So I definitely wouldn't recommend doing it, but you can if you want to boost yourself by 1,000 delta V or so with an AJ10, and this is the maximum tank size. It's 1 minute 55. It's 115 seconds. I think the maximum rating of this early AJ10 is. So we could. It's probably worth saving that as Sergeant Prototype 2 before we go to Sergeant Prototype 5. This isn't even a baby sergeant anymore. It's just a little warm booster. So you could try and design something with only 3 of those. Sort of not the Tiny Tims, but the equivalents of Tiny Tims. And you could put them around there. And that would probably be a little bit better. You're getting closer to the figure, but I think we're going to need a better engine. So the other engines are the expensive ones. The AJ10 was around... I want to say 40, 50k or something like that. It's quite cheap. The other engines are not so. So the LR101, that's 58,000. And then the LR79 and the LR89, which is down here, both really quite expensive. And the LR101 normally goes with them. So I'm going to have a look and see which one I want to actually spend on. Let's see what that does. So this is a Vernier engine used for attitude control and final velocity adjustments. When there are 2 LR89s, an LR105 and an LR101 and Atlas. So yeah. And the MBX system is an LR79 and 2 LR101s. So they allow attitude control. And that is all the way through in Thor Able, Thor Regina, Thor Delta, and Delta. Okay, so we'd have to buy 58 grand plus an LR79, 140 grand. Well, we're going to want these engines anyway. So we're going to get that one. Ooh, that's expensive. And let's get this one as well. Why is the LR101 only 8 grand now? I'm not questioning it, but that is fine, I guess. And are these all models of the LR79? They are. They're all just different models. That is the default, obviously, Kerbal-like model, and you sort of have one that's more realistic there. So, yeah, we can choose what we want. So let's just adapt this. Let's just take a look at what the stats are for this rocket. So this is 600 kilonewtons, obviously unthrottleable. And which variant of it? Let's just get rid of a few parts here. Let's take these off. And let's take all of our boat tail off. We'll leave this bare to start off with. And get rid of you. Put the LR79 in place. Alright, so let's see what variant it is we start off with. So we start the S3 config. So if you have a look in here on the S3, scroll down. S3, 165 seconds. So not quite 3 minutes. 2 minutes 45. Yeah, 2 minutes 45. So we just need to feed that into here. So remove all the tanks. And I assume it's kerosene and liquid oxygen. Yeah, there we go. So we're over 8,000. I'm not going to say it. Nearly to 9,000 and nearly somewhat higher than 9,000. But 2 minutes 45. So what we're probably going to want to do is expand the size of this tank. Probably diameter, maybe 1.8 meter tank, something like that. 1.8 meters and then length increase. And what's our size coming up to? We're at 41 tons. And our height is 30 meters. The maximum we can go to is, let's say, 15 meters by 1.8. What's that? 0.9. And bring it back down again. 2.45. That looks actually pretty much spot on. So 1.9, good tank size to remember. And we can just increase the size of this to match. And we're up at 8,350. Still short, 7332 in the atmosphere, of course. We're going to get somewhere in between those as a matter of course. So we've got to figure out something else to do. And I guess we've got to put a couple of these on as well. Yeah, they're all going to fire at once. It's not going to be any problem. Will this gimbal at all? In fact, does the LR79 gimbal in range? Does it show? I assume it doesn't because of the verniers. Yeah, T-tab. That's the thing that SpaceX ran out of when they tried to land their recent center stage on the barge. They ran out of this is basically ignition, and yeah, it couldn't fire its engines and just slammed into the ocean at 300 miles an hour, which is entertaining. All right, so we're at 7.3 and 8.3, so we need to get that a little bit higher. Okay, so to finish off, we can, I think, go and fly this in simulation mode just for this episode, rather than go through all the building process and everything else. So I'm going to use MechJeb to fly it, or at least to fly the attitude control, just to keep things really efficient. And this is really important in RSS and RO. In KSP, you can fly it manually with the joystick or whatever you like. In RSS, well, you're not going to succeed as easily if you're going to do that. Well, you're not going to succeed, particularly with this early rocket stuff. You don't have the overhead. So let me just start things up. So show the navbore guidance. We want our orbit inclination to be the current one. We're going to engage the autopilot. We're going to enable auto stage, but only for this initial launch. So it'll release the clamps as soon as that gets to the right point. And let's get going, shall we? So there come the Vernier engines, and it's taking off, so we can disable auto stage now. And if you have a look over here, here's my ascent path. So around 51% turn shape, turn end altitude around 140 kilometers. To be honest, that's even a little high, so I guess we can go 135. Let's see if that actually works. And the start velocity and altitude is 1.2 kilometers. That again is a little low. In fact, that can just be on 1.8. It shouldn't make any difference to what's happening, because obviously we're still accelerating towards 100 meters per second. We're just about to pass it. There goes 100, and there we're going to start tipping. Okay, so it's more like 1.7, but that's fine. So we're going to now start to tip over, and I'm going to accelerate things here because we don't need to worry about this stage of the launch. MechJeb is able to deal with it just fine. I have set limit angle of attack to 12 degrees, so that will give it some leeway. But as it is with all these settings, I've avoided the RSS-RO version of MechJeb. It's like a pitch control. I'm going to just avoid that for now. As you can see, we're coming down towards 35 seconds. I'm going to watch out for electric charge. Here it is. So 10 seconds. Let me just bring us back to real time. And I'm going to lose the fairings. And there goes the engines. You'll see electric charge is dropping quite substantially. So what we're going to actually do is separate. Okay, and it doesn't matter too much that this is going to start tipping the wrong way. What we're really looking for is, well, how long is this stage going to last? It's going to fire for nearly 2 minutes. So we want to wait till we're about a minute away from the apoapsis. And this is going to be best if we time accelerate towards that. Again, as these separate, they will point in different directions. If I had the extra electric charge, I would be fine with that, but I don't. So 1 minute 23, 1 minute 20. We're approaching that now, so we can now fire our Separatrons. And now our AJ-10. Now the only change I made to this AJ-10 stage is to go over the Tank 3 high pressure version, and on top of that I mounted just a tiny little 11-second Aerobee stage. But even with 11 seconds, it's got 1,000 delta V up here in space, and it's going to be very, very important to us. You'll see our time to apoapsis is dropping. But now the AJ-10 obviously has onboard control with the ascent guidance and MechJeb. We've got a battery here, just to make sure. You can see we have battery at the very top right of the screen. Whoops. Battery at the very top right of the screen. And you're going to want that as well. Other than that, the very top of this thing is just the sounding rocket telemetry unit. So yeah, this is literally the sort of... we don't really have a payload other than this tiny little telemetry unit. But it's fine. Let's get towards when we're ready to do the next stage. Okay, so we get 10 seconds left in our current stage, and a time to apo is static, so we're just reaching it just as we get to the point in the sort of the very peak of our orbit. And now you'll see we're short. We're 220 kilometers above, but the other side isn't going anywhere, so we need to find the next stage. And hopefully this works. So you can see the counter is rapidly going down now. So is our fuel. It's only 11 seconds long. So it's Perry, it's turning around. And we're 218 on one side and 540 on the other. So if this was the live launch, all we need to do now is send some telemetry back to space. We've got a little bit of electric charge left in this. And we're not far enough away from the launch control that we need to worry about anything else. And then, although in the simulation this might not work, it says achieve orbit around Earth with a minimum perigee of 150 kilometers. Well, I've done that, but it's not actually ticking. So that may be something to do with the simulation. In either case, we've done all of the rest, so we'll have something capable of our first orbit. And if we have a look on the map screen, you'll see, if I just rotate it correctly, that we are indeed in orbit. 218 kilometers by 540. And in case you're wondering how hard it is to get to the moon, I did get a commenter saying, yes, the moon's orbit is inclined, and of course it is. So it's not as easy to get to the moon as you might think. Certainly not as easy as in Kerbal Space Program. But we have now got a design that will let us get to orbit, at least with something tiny like this. We'll improve that over the coming episodes. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Hope you enjoyed seeing what we've got here. I'm just going to terminate this simulation and finish off the episode just by reviewing that in the VAB. And feel free to subscribe and share, of course, if you haven't already, and leave comments. Well, more than welcome to leave them, particularly in RSS and RO, which are not easy at the best of times. And of course, if you're following along and you're struggling, let people know in the comments, and you can obviously help each other out. So just to briefly review, we've got this LR79 at the bottom, and here's the actual tank settings. This is only a tank 1, so I could probably do much better. In fact, hang on, I wonder... I'll leave it till the next episode. If I replace that with a tank 3, that may be much better in terms of our delta V. But in any case, above that, we have our typical payload fairing, and an AJ-10 early. Above that, we have a tank 3, high pressure. If you use a balloon tank, as I was tempted to do, it doesn't work. It doesn't work with the AJ-10, unfortunately. Balloon tanks, you need to keep them highly pressurized, otherwise they'll collapse in on themselves. They're literally very thin-walled tanks. Above that, we've got a small battery. There you can see the settings. This is an XAS-R version of the Era B. See? We could go up again to the AJ-1027, but that's not really a problem. And then a tank 3 on the top with high pressure, and again, online. So, looks pretty good, I think. Let's just put that back. Just make sure I save this. We want that U there. This is going to be 12,000. Unfortunately, that's quite a lot, but most of it will probably be in tooling. So, what can we spend on this thing? So, tooling cost, if we're going to fly it 5 times, then it may be worthwhile getting our money back. So that's the tank 1, however. So I think before actually doing this, in fact, let me just compare that now. We've got 9.5 kilometers. Yeah, 9,500 delta V. Let me just change something over. Oh, well, look at that. Changing that across to a tank 3 with exactly the same settings. And is the engine still okay? Yep, the engine's still fine. We get to 10.7. So we could, in theory, take off that top phase. We still want the battery there. But we could take off that, move this up. And we'd still be 10.6 because we just lose with that. So I think I'm going to call that the Orbital 1D, just so I can save this variant. And then we can do without that last kick stage and still get into orbit. So let's just pop this back on. That'll shorten the fairing, which means less cost for the fairing. And we need to make sure that's in the right place. But other than that, this is a nice early orbiter. So what have we got? We've got choice of tooling for that, so we'll save 1,500 on the fairing. The tank 3, That's going to drop 4.5k if we tool it, but it will cost us 20k. I think I'm going to go ahead and do that, because this is the exact size of an LR79 lower stage. So if we ever reuse this, we will be reusing it. We will be able to recoup on those costs. Down to 9.7. Okay, so the tank 3 up here is costing us, and this again is the maximum size for this AJ 10 early, so we're going to want to tool that one as well. Down to 3.6k. And then what are the savings on the rest? So the payload fairing and the base and the battery. The battery is, yeah, it doesn't make much difference. But payload fairing and base, yeah, let's do that. And we shall tool the fairing as well. I'm back down to 190,000, so we've used up 310,000. However, we have got a rocket that's only 2,400 to basically fly now, so we can add a couple of those to the VAB build list. Of course, one of them may go wrong. And how long does it take to produce them? That's the only other thing. 71 days. Okay, pretty good. So, again, hope you enjoyed this episode. And as always, thanks for watching.